Before we start, please make sure to like this video and hit this subscribe button, so you never miss a story like this. And also comments where you are watching from, how many sons and daughters you have. Thanks. My name is Natalie, and if one more person tells me to just give up my seat, I swear I'm going to scream. I guess you have everything, huh? The window and the attitude, the older sister hissed, her arms crossed like she owned the whole damn plane. The other one leaned forward, eyes narrowed. Must be nice being selfish and entitled. Some people were raised with manners. I clenched my jaw. My fingers curled tighter around the folded letter in my pocket, creased from the 100 times I'd read it this morning. I hadn't even spoken yet, and they were already attacking me like I was the villain. I had no idea this flight would change everything. Section 2, the fight escalates, 900 more words. The moment I walked down the aisle toward 22A, I felt it. That vibe, you know the one. Judging eyes, fake smiles, the kind of passive-aggressive energy you could cut with a knife. 2 women were already in 22B and 22C. Same bleach blonde hair, identical Chanel bags, both with matching smug faces like they were waiting to pounce. As soon as I reached my seat, the older one smiled, tight-lipped and poisonous. "Oh honey," she said, tapping the headrest. "I think there's been a little mix-up. My sister needs the window seat. She gets panicky if she's not near air." I blinked. No, I'm in 22A. It's on my boarding pass." The younger sister, probably in her 30s but dressed like a Forever 21 catalog, exploded, leaned over with a pout. "Come on, you really can't give up one seat. She has actual anxiety. You don't look like someone who needs the window." I stared at her. "I don't look like someone who needs the window?" She rolled her eyes. "You know what I mean. You're young. Healthy. Not like," she gestured dramatically to her sister, who was now pretending to clutch her chest like she was about to pass out. I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. "You think anxiety is a reason to kick someone out of their paid-for seat?" The older one's smile dropped. "Well, I guess you're just one of those people. Selfish. Probably voted for yourself in high school elections too." My blood boiled. I hadn't even sat down yet and these two were already building a case against me like they were Judge Judy's bitter cousins. "I'm not moving," I said. "I booked this seat for a reason." That's when they really turned nasty. The younger one's voice rose, shrill enough to make heads turn. "Wow. Unreal. We're literally asking for one favor on a 3-hour flight. What happened to compassion? You young people are so obsessed with yourselves." Her sister chimed in, louder. "You'd really rather see someone suffer from a panic attack than scoot over to an aisle seat. You have no heart." I was shaking now. Not out of guilt, out of anger. Because they didn't know. They had no clue why I was here. What I'd lost. What I was holding in my pocket like it was my last tether to sanity. The letter. I felt it brush my fingertips again, reminding me. They didn't know it was from my mother. Written the night before her heart gave out. Folded neatly by the nurse who found her slumped over her desk. They didn't know that window seat was the only one available when I booked this flight to fly back home to bury her, and that her final words said, "I hope you fly with the window down. You always love to look out at the clouds." So yeah, I wasn't about to budge. But I didn't say all that. Not yet. Instead, I lowered my voice, calm, razor sharp. "You can complain. You can name call. You can play victim all you want. But I'm not moving." The older sister scoffed so loudly that the flight attendant looked over. "Is there a problem here?" she asked, already weary. The younger one answered first, wide-eyed and fake innocent. "Yes, actually. This girl is refusing to move for a passenger with medical anxiety. She's being really aggressive." I turned to the attendant, my voice steady but firm. "I have a boarding pass for 22A. I am in the correct seat." They're asking me to move for their comfort. I said no. The flight attendant glanced between us, clearly sizing up the situation. The women were already putting on their Oscar-worthy victim faces. "Ma'am," she said gently to me, "would you mind just moving to?" "No," I said. "I would mind. I have my reasons." Something in my tone must have hit her, because she nodded. "Understood." Then turned to the sisters. "Unless you've got a medical certificate or a documented request, I can't ask her to move." Boom. Game over? You'd think so. But of course not. Because entitled people never quit. They only escalate. The older one suddenly gasped and clutched her chest like she was in a soap opera. "I'm not okay. I can't breathe." "Oh my God, her pulse is rising," the younger one shrieked. People were now staring. Phones were being lifted. I heard at least 2 TikTokers whisper, "Are we filming this? This is gold." I stood there, frozen. Because now I wasn't just the selfish girl in their story, I was being turned into the villain of a medical emergency. The flight attendant spoke into her radio. "Possible medical issue, seat 22B. Get med staff on standby." I exhaled slowly and sat down. Right in the window seat. Because fake panic attack or not, I wasn't going anywhere. And neither was the letter clutched in my pocket, the one that told me I deserved to be here, looking out the window, chasing clouds one last time. But they had no idea what was coming next. Because I hadn't read that letter out loud yet. But soon. I would. And when I did, the entire row, maybe the whole plane, would understand why this seat mattered more than anything. And why calling me selfish was the biggest mistake they ever made. The seatbelt sign wasn't even on yet, but the drama was. As the 2 sisters huffed and rolled their eyes beside me, whispering under their breath loud enough for half the plane to hear, I leaned my forehead against the cold glass and finally exhaled. Not because I felt peace, far from it, but because I needed to focus. Breathe. Steady my pulse. I couldn't let them win. Not just because they were rude, manipulative, and cruel, but because this seat was mine. Not just by reservation. Not just by boarding pass. It was mine because of her. My mother. I booked this flight 2 days ago, right after the call. "We're so sorry for your loss," the nurse had said, like death could be packaged politely. I was standing in the cereal aisle when I dropped the phone and sank to the floor. It felt like the air was sucked out of the room. And all I could think was, she was alone. She was alone when it happened. She was always alone. And I wasn't there. I booked the first flight I could afford. And yeah, I paid extra for the window seat. That was intentional. It was the only thing I asked for. She used to say, "If you're ever feeling lost, look out the window. The world looks smaller from above. The pain feels lighter." I'd laughed when she said it as a kid. Rolled my eyes as a teen. But now? It was all I had left of her. That silly wisdom. That soft smile. That paper-thin voice saying things that suddenly mattered more than anything in the world. That's why I wasn't moving. Not for 2 grown women who thought designer sunglasses made them royalty. Not for fake panic attacks and guilt trips and nasty stares. Not even for the flight attendant who looked 1 second away from asking again. I was done letting people shove me around just to avoid a scene. For once, I was keeping what was mine. And if that made me selfish, so be it. The sisters didn't know any of that, of course. To them, I was just some moody Gen Z girl clinging to a seat like a toddler with a toy. They didn't see the letter in my pocket. They didn't know I hadn't slept. That my suitcase barely zipped because I packed it in 10 minutes. That my hands were still shaking from the guilt. They didn't know I missed her last call. Or that the voicemail she left cut off halfway through. Or that when I opened her nightstand drawer last night, there was a sealed envelope with my name in her handwriting, shaky, uneven, barely legible. That's the letter I carried now. Folded. Worn. Pressed to my chest like armor. I didn't even need to read it anymore. I'd memorized every word. Natalie, if you're reading this, I'm already gone. Don't cry. I've had a good life. And you? You were the best part of it. Always. I hope when you fly home, you take a window seat. You used to love that. Do you remember? You'd press your nose to the glass and say, I'm touching the clouds. I hope you chase those clouds again. They're still yours. Yeah. That's what she wrote. That's what I held when they called me selfish. That's what they mocked when they said, not everyone gets what they want. And still, I stayed silent. Because grief makes you tired. It turns your voice into gravel. And besides, what could I say to people like them? That my mom was gone and this seat was her final gift to me? They wouldn't care. They'd just find another way to twist it, make it about themselves. Everyone's lost someone. You're not the only one grieving. You could still be kind. No. Not today. Today, I sat in that seat because it was the last place I could feel her. And that was worth every glare, every insult, every passive-aggressive sigh from the two women beside me. I heard one of them mutter, "What a drama queen." Probably making it up. That's when I reached into my pocket. I didn't unfold it. I just held the letter in my palm, creased and soft and warm from my skin. My fingers trembled, but my resolve didn't. I didn't need to wave it around like a weapon. But if they pushed me far enough, I would. I would read it aloud. Word for word. Let the entire plane hear the truth behind my silence. Let them squirm in their fake compassion. Let them see the difference between real pain and performative tears. I turned to the older sister and met her eyes, calm but burning. Has anyone in your life ever loved you enough to leave you something when they're gone? I asked softly. She blinked, caught off guard. What? Just answer the question. She hesitated. Looked away. Her mouth opened, then closed again. But I didn't need her answer. Because I already knew. People like that don't understand grief. Not the real kind. The kind that grabs you by the throat and doesn't let go. The kind that makes even a plane seat feel sacred. I faced forward again. The plane was starting to taxi. And I knew, no matter how long this flight was, no matter how heavy the silence beside me got, I wasn't moving. Because my mother told me to chase the clouds. And today, I was going to do just that. I should have known it wasn't over. Some people don't back off when they're wrong. They just get louder. Meaner. More desperate to win, even when there's nothing left to gain. The younger sister, Lexi, I think her name was, tapped my shoulder again. I didn't turn. I was done talking. But she kept going. You're seriously gonna ignore us the entire flight, she said, scoffing like I was the problem. You're not even trying to be decent. I stayed quiet. That made her madder. Oh my God, she thinks she's better than us, she laughed sharply. What, you think being sad gives you a free pass to be rude? That was it. I unbuckled my seatbelt and stood up. The sudden motion caught her off guard. Both sisters leaned back like I was about to lunge, but I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't curse or clap back the way they probably expected. I just reached into my pocket, my hand shaking slightly, and pulled out the letter. I held it in my palm like it weighed 10 pounds. Like it might fall apart if I squeezed too tight. The older sister tilted her head. What is that? A receipt? Oh wait, let me guess, your tragic backstory? I finally looked her in the eye. You want to know why I booked this seat? Why I won't move? Why I don't care if you cry, or whine, or call the flight attendant another 10 times? I asked, my voice low but steady. It's because of this. I unfolded the letter. Their smirks faded. This is the last thing my mother ever wrote to me. She died 2 days ago. Alone. In a hospital bed. While I was working a double shift thinking she was getting better. The cabin around us grew quieter. A few passengers had turned their heads. I didn't care. She always told me that window seats made everything look smaller. Softer. That when life felt heavy, looking out the glass would make it bearable. So when I booked this flight to go collect her ashes, yes, that's where I'm going, I paid extra for this exact spot. Because I needed it. Because she asked me to take it. I could feel the tears rising now, but I didn't blink them away. I let them fall. She wrote in this letter, "If you're reading this, I'm already gone. I hope when you fly home, you take a window seat. You used to love that. You'd press your nose to the glass and say you were touching the clouds." I looked around, breathing hard. That's what I'm doing today. I'm touching the clouds for her. Neither of them said a word. For once, their mouths were shut. I looked straight at Lexi. You called me selfish. You told me to get over myself. You had no idea what I was carrying. You never even asked. You just assumed your comfort mattered more than my grief. Silence. Do you still think I should move? She looked down. Her voice came out smaller now. We didn't know. No, I said firmly, you didn't care to know. I turned toward the other passengers. Let me ask you all something, I said, louder now. If this was your last chance to honor someone you loved, if this seat meant more than just a view, would you give it up to two strangers who insulted you the moment you sat down? Nobody answered. But I could feel it. The weight in the air had shifted. Even the flight attendant, who had been watching from a few rows back, slowly nodded and gave me a quiet thumbs up. She got it now. Everyone did. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in my pocket like it was made of gold. Then I sat down. Strapped my belt again. Rested my head against the window and stared out at the tarmac, where the sky was starting to tint gold. And for the first time in 2 days, I felt the smallest breath of peace. The sisters didn't speak again after that. Not a word. And honestly? That was all I needed. The plane touched down with a jolt. You know that moment, when the wheels hit and everything inside you rises just slightly, like your heart's trying to catch up with gravity? That's how I felt. But it wasn't just the plane. It was the entire morning crashing into me all at once. The noise of seatbelts unclicking, phones turning back on, passengers stretching like they'd just come back from war, it all blurred together. But I wasn't rushing to leave. I wasn't even sure I could stand yet. The letter in my pocket felt even heavier now. My mother's words had floated with me across the sky, and somehow, that mattered more than anything else that had happened. And then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw her move. Lexi. The younger sister. The one who had mocked me first. She turned toward me with her bag slung over her shoulder and a look on her face I didn't expect. It wasn't smug. It wasn't annoyed. It was something else, something almost like guilt. I'm sorry, she said, her voice soft and low. I blinked. I didn't answer. Not yet. Her sister, the louder one, the one who had barked at me and rolled her eyes like it was her full-time job, just stood awkwardly behind her, not saying a word. She was avoiding my eyes now, her lips pressed tight like she wanted to say something but didn't know how. I didn't know about your mom, Lexi went on. I mean, I didn't even think to ask. That's on me. We shouldn't have come at you like that. There it was. Not a speech. Not some over-the-top apology. Just real words. Honest. Messy. Human. I nodded once. That's all I had energy for. A single nod. But it was enough. And then, something I didn't expect happened. Lexi reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small white envelope. She held it out. Her hands were trembling a little. I don't know if this is weird, she said, but My sister and we chipped in. It's not much. Just something to maybe help with, whatever comes next. I stared at the envelope in her hand like it was radioactive. You don't have to take it, she added quickly. Seriously. No pressure. It's just, sometimes people carry heavy things, and if we can make it even an ounce lighter. She didn't finish. She didn't need to. I took the envelope without a word. Not because of the money, whatever was inside didn't matter. It was the gesture. The way it cracked through all the noise and venom from earlier. It was them trying. Really trying. The older sister finally spoke. Barely above a whisper. I lost my dad last year. But I didn't fly out for the funeral. I made excuses. I regret it every single day. She looked at me then. For what it's worth. I hope your mom's proud of you. That one hit me hard. Harder than I thought it would. Because the truth is, I didn't know if she was. I'd spent the last year missing calls, delaying visits, assuming there'd always be more time. I was just trying to survive, to pay rent, to show up for work. But I hadn't shown up for her. And somehow, two strangers who'd called me selfish just hours ago, had handed me something I didn't even know I needed. Closure. The kind that doesn't come with perfect words or dramatic music. Just a quiet moment. A heavy envelope. A shared truth between women who started as enemies, and now, maybe, weren't quite that anymore. As I stepped off the plane, I looked back once. The sisters were still standing there, watching me go. And for the first time since the flight began, I smiled. Not a full one. Just a flicker. But it was real. And for now, that was enough. I thought the hardest part was behind me. The flight. The seat. The tension. The confrontation. Even the letter. But grief doesn't travel on a schedule. It doesn't care about time zones or baggage claim or how strong you think you are. It waits. Quietly. Until you're alone again. I was walking through the terminal, just another face in a sea of passengers. My feet moved, but everything inside me was still raw. Numb. Like the fight had been drained from me, but the ache had nowhere else to go. I reached into my coat and pulled out the letter again. Mom's handwriting. Neat, curved, careful. Like she knew it would be the last time I ever saw it. If you're reading this, I'm already gone. But I want you to remember this: grief is not the enemy. Regret is. Don't let people rush you through pain. And don't waste time explaining your reasons to those who never cared to ask. You've always carried more than people knew, and I've never been prouder. I stopped right there. Near the escalators. My chest collapsed into itself. I covered my mouth as the tears came, hot and fast and loud. There wasn't a single elegant thing about it. I didn't cry pretty. I cried like someone who finally let it out. People walked past, most of them pretending not to see. A few glanced. One woman slowed, then thought better of it and kept going. But then, someone sat down next to me. I didn't look right away. I couldn't. But I felt the presence. A soft shoulder against mine. Not pushing. Not asking. Just there. I lost my mom last Christmas. That voice. I turned. It was the woman from 14C. The one who hadn't said a word during the flight. The one who had watched everything happen between me and the sisters. I was flying home too, she said. Window seat. Alone. Cried the whole way. No one noticed. I blinked at her, stunned. She smiled gently. I noticed you though. You reminded me of me. She reached into her tote bag and pulled out a worn paperback. No title on the cover. Just a faded red binding and yellowed pages. She used to read this to me, she said, placing it on my lap. I carry it with me every time I fly. I haven't opened it since the funeral. But something told me, you'd need it more today. I couldn't speak. I just stared at the book, hands trembling. I'm Jenna, she added softly. If you ever want to talk. Or sit. Or not talk. That's okay too. I managed a whisper. I'm Kayla. And then something I hadn't felt in months suddenly hit me. I wasn't alone. Not really. Grief connects us in ways joy never could. Pain is a language strangers understand without needing translation. And maybe, just maybe, healing starts in the unlikeliest of places. Not in grand gestures. But in a quiet voice. A paperback passed between hands. A seat by a stranger when the world feels like it's falling apart. So no, I didn't give up my window seat. But by the time I left that airport, I had given up something else. The need to explain my worth to people who never saw it. The guilt I carried for not being perfect. The shame for choosing my moment over their comfort. I left it all behind, right there on that cold terminal bench. And as I stepped outside into the wind, letter still clutched in one hand, paperback in the other, I knew my mom would have smiled. Because even though I didn't move from that window seat, I'd still managed to change my view. Do you think it's selfish to choose yourself, even when others are watching?